And we welcome you to the C&C Auto Show. And if you are looking for information on ways to make your car safe, dependable, and long lasting, then do not move. I'm Aaron Clements, ready to answer your automotive questions and share some tips. And all you need to do is pick up that phone, dial 800-224-9090. That's the only number that'll work, 800-224-9090. That's our main number down. And you can call in on any Saturday morning between 8:05 and 10 Eastern Time. You can also listen to the show live on social media. You can just go to ccautoshow.com and choose your favorite platform link, and you can just chime in, ask your automotive question, and we would love to answer that from right here. During the show today, we will be giving the winner or announcing the winner of the C&C Auto Show jump box. That way, if you have an issue with your battery being weak one morning when you walk out, or if you've got your boat all loaded up and ready to roll and the battery's dead, and you don't have to ruin a trip or be late for work, you can just jump that bad boy off and you're ready to go. So let's buckle up and ride, and we'll talk about cars, and we'll start with a tech tip quiz. And that tech tip quiz today, the winner will receive a prize package, which will contain, you'll get a choice of a coffee cup or a coffee mug or a C&C Auto Show shirt. Plus, there's a lot of other little items in there that you'll really enjoy. So here is the question for the tech tip quiz. John and Mary have a teenage son that loves the text message. He was also getting his license soon, and they were very concerned that he may have a distracted driving accident. They sit down and told him something that may have saved him from having a terrible accident. What did they tell him? And if you know the answer, you give us a call. And I'll also mention that during today's show, we will have some items that we'll have to do, be given some tips on teenage driving. Because many times when people are coming up to those years, and there's a lot of traffic on the road. Cars have more power than ever before. And and there's so many other things that can take our attention away. The radios in vehicles just almost sound like a live concert sometime. You have the phone, you have the text messaging, and even some cars have video that you can that you're able to watch. So we want to be able to teach our teenagers and the new drivers the consequences of driving while distracted for any reason. It could be other kids in the car with them. But they don't know that it just takes a second for something terrible to happen. So for this show is for all those teenagers that are learning how to drive and coming up, and so we'll be giving tips on that. But also we'll be answering those car questions. If you've had a car that's making a rattle noise, you've been told that it might need some type of service, you're wondering whether you should get it. You've taken it several places and hadn't really been able to get a clear answer. I'm here to help. Also, I've got a whole list of other people that I'm able to call. So if you were to call, and let's say you had a item that had to do with optional equipment, or an item that had to do with a certain specialty area, I'm able to go in now and call different people that can come on the line with us and help to answer those questions. So I want you to give us a call. And again, that number, 800-224-9090, and you can you call in and ask that automotive question. All right, we're going to go with the first tip of the day that has to do with texting, and that is that if you have kids that are just starting to drive, have that conversation with them about texting and driving. I don't want to bring all of us down during the show right now. But the fact is that around 400 fatal crashes happen every year as a direct result of texting and driving. And the U.S. Department of Transportation says that it takes about 4 seconds. Think about that. 4 seconds to read a text And during that time, you drive about the length of a football field at 55 miles per hour. And that's a long way to drive with your eyes completely off the road. So anything can happen in that length of time, and we want to make sure that those new drivers know that. So sit down, have that conversation. I also want to mention one other thing. The show, we've been very fortunate on this show. We have we're playing in roughly about 55 other markets now, 55 markets across the U.S. It's been very good. I love it very much. Love answering the automotive questions, and want to just say thank you to all those stations that brought on the C&C Auto Show. It's been very exciting on some of the things that we've done. And want to welcome all those people that listen to the C&C Auto Show. We appreciate that very much. Okay, again, the number to call, 800-224-9090. Got a question? We'll mention another texting tip about the texting and driving, and that's that it's not just the time spent. A lot of times people think, well, the time you're looking down at the phone is the dangerous moments of text messaging, but actually texting is not just the time spent texting or looking at the phone. It's also the additional time that it takes for your eyes to reorient to the road and all the other cars that are running around you. And also the once a driver uses their phone, it can take about 27 seconds for the mental distraction to wear off. And according to the AAA Foundation, that's known as the hangover effect of driving. And that sounds pretty accurate, because I know that many times if you're doing something and you look at your phone and then you look back up, it takes a period of time before you're actually back engaged with everything you're doing, whether it's driving or something else. It takes just that period of time to be able to get back up there. So remember that you do have that hangover effect when you're doing the texting and driving. I'm gonna read the tech tip quiz one more time. John and Mary have a teenage son, and he loves to text message. He was getting his license soon, and they were very concerned that he may have a distracted driving accident. They sat down and told him something that may have saved him from having a terrible accident. If you know the answer to that, you give us a call, and again, 800-224-9090. And we also, one of the things that we have that we had earlier this week, I want to mention a car that come in that we that had an issue with it, and the thing is that they had a problem with the pulley coming off. They had some work done in another area, and they brought it in, and they said that someone had done some work to the front of the engine, and there was like a pulley come off of the vehicle, and that pulley had hit and damaged the cooling fan, and part of the cooling fan broke and went into the radiator. The reason I mention that is there's so many, it's a good idea when you're having a vehicle repaired is find out what the warranty is. And if there's a national warranty, a lot of places or a lot of repair facilities have a nationwide warranty of some kind. Sometimes it might be something through Napa Auto Care Centers. Sometimes it might be through O'Reilly Auto Care Centers or some other type repair company or organization. But it's a good idea to know that and have that number nearby in your glove box. That way, if you do have a problem, you can call and say, hey, I had this repaired at so-and-so, and it's acting up. And many times it'll give you some coverage even though you might be out of town. So keep that in mind if you have it, and that'll be one of our repair segments for today. Okay, here to answer automotive questions. Give us a call, and that's any Saturday morning at 8:05 to 10 Eastern Time. You can also watch the show live on your favorite social media platform by going to ccautoshow.com, and we'll be back in just a few minutes. And we are back with you with the C&C Auto Show. If you have a question about your car, truck, or SUV, you give us a call. That number, 800-224-9090. Again, that's 800-224-9090. And we are giving tips on teenage driving. Now's the time of year. Kids will be going back to school soon, and some will be driving to school for the very first time. And I think it's a good idea to sit down and have a conversation with that teenage driver and let them know some of the things that they may be going to experience as they're working with cars. And you may have a tip of your own of something that you may want to give us a call and say, this is what we did with our teenage driver, and it worked very well. Or you may have a question about your car. Is it time to change the transmission fluid? At how often do you change the coolant on your vehicle? And what's a good idea there? How do you know when it's time to change the coolant on a vehicle? And all of these things can help in some way. The items having to do with the vehicle, of course, can increase the longevity of your vehicle. What I run into many times is someone buy a vehicle, and when it's new, they'll, for the first, I would say even 80, 90, 100,000 miles, they'll do all the servicing that needs to be done. They'll change the coolant when it's due, the transmission fluid when it's due, and do a lot of other things to the vehicle and keep it maintained. But then as the car gets a little older, they say, well, it's a little bit older car. I don't really want to spend that much money on it. So sure enough, things start happening. They start having transmission issues, water pumps leaking, heater cores leaking, and they start having all of these things that happen to the vehicle that could have been avoided but they think it's normal. They think, well, every car I get, when I get about 150,000 miles on the vehicle, things start falling apart. Well, many times it starts falling apart because you quit the preventative maintenance, and you next thing you know, you start having all those issues. Whereas if you would have continued with the preventative maintenance that you were doing in the beginning, you would continue to keep the vehicle in good condition, and you'd be able to drive it for many, many more years with less maintenance or less broken items on the vehicle. And that's what we see here at the shop. There's two types of vehicles that come in, and we have cars that come in that have something broken, a broke car. It's got like a water pump leaking. It's got a part that's worn out on the suspension. It's got a cooling fan broken, a running hot issue, a broken car. And it used to be at one time about 80% of the cars that come into our repair facility was broken cars. And because of that, we would stay busy, very busy, just repairing these broken items that cars come in for. Some would be engines, some transmissions, some rear differential type work, but we would stay very busy repairing all of those items. As time went on, the cars started being built better, but also the people started paying attention to preventative maintenance. They started discovering that, hey, I can do preventative maintenance on this car, and I don't run into all of these broken items on my vehicle that need to be replaced and the really high dollar type items. Instead, I can have my transmission fluid exchanged when I get 50, 60, 70,000 miles, and didn't do it again when I get 120, 150,000 miles. And I can go many, many years without needing a new transmission. Same way with water pumps, alternators. And by alternators, that would include doing things like not trying to stretch everything you can out of the battery that you have. Many times someone will have a battery, and it'll be 4 years old, and they'll know that it's going to be completely bad in 5 years, but they start hearing the signs of it dragging just a little bit. They might even have to jump it off from time to time, but they start getting that last little bit out of that battery. And what happens is every morning that alternator has to jump in there and recharge that battery again, because it might have enough voltage in there to actually spin the car over and start the vehicle. but it does not have enough voltage to go in and stay and keep the alternator from having to charge. So each morning, the battery might have like 11.8 volts, and you'll hear it spin a little bit slower. Well, once the car starts up, then the alternator has to recharge that battery and get it back up to 12.6 by usually putting it'll charge between 13.8 and 14.5, and it'll do that until the battery gets good and charged up, and it'll do that every morning. And over a period of time, finally, boom, the alternator gives out and the battery goes dead. Well, in your mind, the alternator just went bad and that killed your battery. But in reality, it's the other way around. The battery went bad and it killed your alternator. And then, of course, the car stopped running. So all of these things that you can do as far as preventative maintenance can save you money, because I can tell you a battery is much, much less expensive than having to replace a whole alternator. Same way with doing a cooling system fluid exchange is much less expensive than replacing water pumps or radiators or heater cores or fittings or gaskets. All of these things can go bad due to bad coolant. Okay, we're going to take a real quick break, and when we return, we will very soon be giving away our jump box. And we'll be right back after this. All right, and we are back with you with the C&C Auto Show. I am here to answer your automotive question, and you just give me a call, 800-224-9090. And that's on any Saturday morning. You can give us a call, and again, that's between Saturday morning, 8:05 to 10. You can also go to ccautoshow.com, just pick out the social media platform that you like, and you can watch it there. Someone that has come by here has put we've had names taken to win our jump box giveaway, and also people have been able to register on Instagram. But we do have a winner of our jump box. And that is I recommend it's a good thing to have a jump box around. I'm going to pick this thing up. Hold on one second and bring it over here. Oh, it's not real heavy, but jump boxes are just a little bit depending on the size that you get. This one gives 1,000 peak battery amps. They make very small ones that actually fit in your glove box, which is good for a battery that might be down just a little bit, but just needs that little extra to cause it to crank, or a lot of them can also charge up your cell phones. And but these can come in very well if you've got a vehicle that won't start, and you need to get to work. Instead of having to wait for a tow truck to get there, you can just walk out and hook it up and boom. If you put your boat in the water and you're ready to go fishing and the battery don't work and you've got one of these in your trunk, you just grab it. And some person is going to win this one that we have here. Actually, this one come from O'Reilly Auto Parts. I picked out one that I thought would be kind of nice for someone. So Anthony is bringing the paper with the name of the winner of the jump box giveaway with the C&C Auto Show, and the winner is Jessica May. Jessica is the winner of this, and her address was Life with King and Kiwis. But Jessica May has won this jump box today, so we will be getting her information and sending her this jump box that we have, and that is the jump box giveaway at C&C Automotive, and that we do have a winner. And congratulations, Jessica May. Great deal. Okay, I'm going to throw the Tech Tip quiz back out there. Now someone will have the opportunity to win a C&C Auto Show shirt or a C&C Auto Show mug, and one of the prizes that we have in with that. It's a prize package. John and Mary have a teenage son that loves to text message. He was getting his license soon, and they were very concerned that he may have a distracted driving accident. They sit down and told him something that may have saved him from having a terrible accident. What did they tell him? And if you know the answer, give us a call. And again, that number is 800-224-9090. And we'll be also answering automotive questions. You give us a call at that number, and we will be setting on go to answer those. And we will go to the next tip that has to do with distracted driving, and that is that if someone, well, this is in some ways kind of bad to mention, but it's something that I think needs to be mentioned. The National Highway Transportation Safety Association reports that in 2019, 723 passengers, 462 pedestrians, and 77 bicycles were all killed by distracted driving. And the age group with that highest rate of the drivers causing the fatal crashes were under 20. And that was at about 9%, followed by 7% in the 25 to 34 group and 6% in the 21 to 24 group. And it just can happen so fast. You can look down to see something on your phone, check something on your phone, and you can swerve off the road just a little bit. Someone there on a bicycle or something like that, and boom, a terrible accident can happen. So try to resist the urge of doing that, because it's so easy to just get relaxed in driving and feel like that it's not a big problem, to look down and then you see something really interesting, and next thing you know, you've looked down longer than you thought you would. So you want to try to do everything that you can to keep that from happening. And if you have a question about your car, truck, or SUV, you give us a call. That's 800-224-9090, and we will be prepared to answer those automotive questions. And we will mention we have another giveaway that we will be giving away, and that is we will be, during this show, we will be giving away a $25 gift card from O'Reilly Auto Parts. And if you hadn't if you hadn't had the opportunity to visit an O'Reilly Auto Parts, really great place to go in. You go in well lit, everything is laid out very nice. But one of the things that I like very much about O'Reilly Auto Parts is the professional parts people that they have behind the counter. You walk in, you need something, and you're not just left only walking around with no one that you can talk to about getting the parts that you feel like that you need. There will be someone there that knows about cars and someone that actually loves cars, and they'll be able to help you find the item that you're looking for. And sometimes they might take you out to the showroom and say, well, this is the area to where the like the last thing I went there for was a trailer hitch. I needed a trailer hitch ball. And I went up to the counter, and he said, yeah, all the trailer hitch items are right over here. They took me out there, and I was able to look at each one of the items that they had in place, and I was able to spend the time, pick out the one I want. If I would have had any questions, of course, I could have walked back up and asked him, and he would have told me everything I needed to know. But it was just a good experience for me because everything was laid out really nice. Everything was well lit, and I was able to get the item that I was looking for, and everything went really good. And you can do the same thing, and this will give you opportunity to go in and have that $25 gift card to spend and look around. So $25 gift card for O'Reilly Auto Parts. We'll be giving that away shortly. And again, number to call, 800-224-9090. If you have a question about your car, truck, or SUV, you just give us a call. And we are talking about items that have to do with distracted driving, which is a pretty big issue on that. And a lot of that has to do with just different devices that people use. And according to the Department of Transportation, 6 to 24-year-old drivers have been observed using handheld devices while they're driving, and that's a lot higher rate than the older drivers. And sometimes in some cases, it might be that the younger drivers just have a lot of other people to text to, but it also could be that some of these younger drivers just don't know the consequences of what can happen if they're looking down at their phone and driving. So it's up to the older drivers to let them know that, and let them know that, hey, this is something that you need to be very careful of. Don't text and drive, because you could have some issues in doing that. Just that few seconds looking down. I'm not sure if anyone has been driving along and they did look down at their phone and then all of a sudden look back up and somebody has stopped real fast in front of them, and the adrenaline starts to flow when you do that. But you do want to be very, very careful with that part. Okay, we'll be taking a break, and when we return, we'll be covering some items that has to do with the longevity of your car, because that's something everybody wants, because of the newer vehicles are sometimes even hard to find, very expensive, even used vehicles very expensive. So we want to do everything that we can to make our vehicles last as long as possible and be trouble-free, safe, and dependable. So we'll give some tips on that when we return. We'll be right back after these messages. And we do welcome you back to the C&C Auto Show. And if you got a question about your car, truck, or SUV, you give me a call at number 800-224-9090. That's on any Saturday morning, 8:05 to 10 Eastern Time. And want to encourage you to go to C&C Auto Show and hook up with Instagram right there. You'll see a list of different social media platforms right on the lower part of the page, and you could pick out the one that you like the best. Of course, a couple there is you have the Facebook, you have the YouTube, you have the Instagram. Give Instagram a shot, see how it goes, and you'll be able to see the C&C Auto Show and follow it live. Okay, we want to talk about something that to me is a very important part of the vehicle, because not only is it something that has to do with dependability, but it has a lot to do with safety also, and that's the tires on a vehicle. Tires, a lot of times people underestimate the importance of a good tire, and many times they're driving and they're riding along and they hit a wet spot and they almost feel their car move over. Well, in effect, what it's doing is that car is actually coming off the ground in hydroplaning, because there's not enough tread for the water to go through the tire, so it just lifts the whole vehicle up, and it can help you to lose control. I'll mention that we do some work for some of the body shops, and on the vehicles that we get that have been in an accident and being repaired, and we don't do the body repair work or the collision repair work, we do some of the mechanical repairs for the body shop. So we see them after they've already been partially repaired and something needs to be reprogrammed or done. We'll have the vehicle here. What's been strange that I see over the years that's happened is these cars that's come in, many of them that's been in an accident have very low tread on the tires. And for instance, they were just riding along and either something, boom, it went over to the side of the road, hydroplaned and went off the road, or in some cases, they hit the brakes. And of course, when the tread is lower, your stopping distance is longer. So if you've got a car with worn out tires, if you have to slam on brakes, you're more prone to hit something because your stopping distance is much longer than if you had really good tires on a vehicle. That would shorten the stopping distance. So tires are very important. And one of the ways that there's 2 or 3 things you want to check on the tires. One of the things that you would want to look at is the tread depth. Now, of course, one way you can find out your tread depth is each time you have your vehicle serviced for your regular oil change service, they do an inspection, and most places that do a normal service know that it's important to not just change the oil and the oil filter. The main thing that has to do with that service is that's an opportunity to check the tires, check all the fluids, and check to see if anything needs to be done, any services that need to be done. And some are priority services, some are priority 2 services, some priority 3. But the tires are one of the things that needs to be looked at that time. And several things need to be looked at. One is the tread depth. Now, a professional technician would be using a tire depth gauge to do that. And with that, the depth gauge, when the tires get down to about 4 in the closest area, 4/32 in the closest area, then I recommend starting to think about new tires. And you can do the same thing if you wanted to hold a quarter in between the tread. If you can see the top of George Washington's head, then you know that, hey, I'm 4/32, I need to start thinking about tires. Then if you get down to 2/32, you would want to start, you would know that you're ready for tires. And you can do the same thing with a penny. You can stick a penny in and see Lincoln's. If you see the top of Lincoln's head, then you know that it's time for tires. So that's a rough idea of how to check the tread depth, and you want to look over the entire area of the tire. You don't want to just look at the outer edge and say, yeah, I'm okay, because many times you may have the outer part of the tire that may look really good, and the inside part of the tire be worn beyond limits or even have cords showing. So you want to make sure you check that. The next thing you want to check out has to do with the cracking, any cracking around the tire, around the rim, around the tire itself, and find out if there's any issues in that area. And then finally, you also want to check the age of the tire, because there are cases to where the outside of the tire may look good, very little cracking, tread depth be good, but the inside of the tire might be very old and the cord starting to crack and stretch, and it can cause a tire to blow out because of the cords on the inside just being very old. And the way to get that is to look at the DOT code on the tire. The last 4 digits of that code is the week and the year. Let's say that if it said 5114, then we know that that tire would have been done on the 51st week of 2014. And that would put that tire at roughly 6 or 7 years old, which means that that tire is very suspect. I don't think I would make a long trip on a tire that was 7 years old, because the inside, when it gets hot, it could very well start to separate on the inside. And tires, it's not unusual to see them when they get around the 5-year mark to either be worn out or starting to crack in one case. But in any case, even if they're not, when they get about that age, I start looking at them as very suspect and start considering replacing those. So, but a lot of it depends on your driving habits. If you're driving around town most of the time, you may go a little longer. If you drive out on the road, you may say, well, I'd rather go ahead and get another set of tires. But you do want to keep a close check on those tires. Now, my next item that I want to mention is something that gets overlooked many, many times when working on a vehicle. And it's a part that probably in some cases cost under $10. There are some that cost in the $30, $35 range, but the majority of them cost under $10, and it can cause some massive issues on a car. And I'll give you an example of a concern a person had when they brought a car in, and tell you what this part is. A car comes in, and they have found that as they were driving, the vehicle's overflow tank would just start bubbling, and they would have to let the car cool off because they would hear the bubbling sound. Hot light wasn't on, but it was just bubbling really bad. So they brought the car in. We checked it out. Well, they were suspecting that they had a bad engine problem, maybe that the head gaskets were bad and the vehicle was going to need major type stuff to be done to the vehicle. Well, it turned out that during the testing phase of the vehicle, we tested the radiator cap. The radiator cap on that vehicle was supposed to hold about 14 psi. Well, when we tested it, it would only hold about 4 psi, if that. It really was just a bad radiator cap. And what was happening is a normal vehicle, when everything's normal, it's not unusual for a vehicle to run a temperature of around 224 to 230, right around in that range is normal operating temperature on some cars. Well, water boils at 212. So you have this issue to where some of the things that keeps it from boiling at the 212 is the pressure that cap holds on it. And if it's going to hold about 14 psi, then doing that will increase the boiling point. So put a new cap on there instead of a head gasket job. This person was able to walk away for under $75, $100 around in there. Very happy, doing well. Okay, we're out of time. Time clock is on E. Need to pull over. I'll be back on the road in no time. I'm Aaron Clements here with show producer Mason Rogers and co-producer Anthony Misano, and we would all like to say thank you for riding with the C&C Auto Show. We'll be back shortly. And we do welcome you to the C&C Auto Show. And if you're looking for information on ways to make your car safer, more dependable, and long-lasting, then don't move an eyelid. I'm Aaron Clements here to answer your automotive questions and share some tips. You just pick up that phone, dial 800-224-9090, and that's our main number, so jot it down, 800-224-9090. And you can call on any Saturday morning between 8:05 and 10 Eastern Time, and you can also listen or watch the show on social media. Just go to ccautoshow.com, choose your favorite platform link, and you click on it. And someone who clicked on Instagram before has won a battery jump box during the last hour, and that person will be receiving that. And during this hour, we'll be giving away a $25 gift card from O'Reilly Auto Parts. So we got a lot of good things going on. We do have a tech tip quiz laying on the table, and I'll read that real quick just before going to the calls. John and Mary have a teenage son that loves to text message. He was getting his license soon, and they were very concerned that he may be distracted and have an accident while he was texting. They sat down and told him something that may have saved him from having a terrible accident. What did they tell him? And if you know the answer, give us a call. And again, 800-224-9090. And we will go to the calls. And let's see here. Andy has a problem, and he was unable to receive a resolution. Andy, welcome to the C&C Auto Show, and what can we help you with?
Well, good morning. I just reported I called last week about replacing the cruise controls on my pickup.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And weren't able. Turns out the cruise control was working. One, the daylight was so bright. I mean, even on the carport. Then my lights were so dim I could not see that the lights were coming on.
Mm-hmm.
Two, I was testing it in the local residential area.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't getting high enough speed for it to turn on.
Oh.
It had to be above 35 miles an hour before cruise would come on.
Uh-huh. Well, that is so great that you call back, because not too many items that I think about that much after the show, because 90% of the time somebody will call, they have an issue, it may not necessarily be definitely the right answer, but it will all fall into place to where it could likely be the right answer. Yours was very unusual because if I remember right, your old one was working, and then you put the new one in, and it didn't work. Then you put the old part back on, and it still didn't work. And I even asked one of the technicians just to be sure if that one needed to be reprogrammed when you replace it. I didn't think you did. And he said, no, you don't have to reprogram those when you replace them. So I was wondering about that, and I am so glad you called back and told me that.
Well, the old one I was testing under the same conditions. The
Uh-huh.
lights had been going in that one, so
Yeah.
so that was what the problem was. I was not fast enough for it to actually work.
Well, that is so great. You know what I decided to do a little earlier there, Andy, was to the first person that called during this hour. I decided that that person would be the winner of this O'Reilly $25 gift card that we have. And it'll be an opportunity to go to O'Reilly Auto Parts, and you get something really nice for your vehicle, or something nice for a friend's vehicle or a family member's vehicle, and get a chance to just walk in and look around and say, well, I got $25 here to get something or towards something. And so you are the winner of our $25 gift card.
Oh, thank you.
And so I'm going to get you to hold on the line, and somebody will be picking up, and they'll be getting the information from you. And we're running into some issues today because we just got a new phone system that we're using, and it's it's got a few little issues in there. So actually, what I'm doing right now, Andy, as I'm talking to you, is I am figuring out how to put you on hold. So here we go. I think I found it. It's got a lot of buttons here, but I think I'm doing like you did with your cruise control. It's this thing works, but I'm just not using it correctly. Okay, Andy, I appreciate it, and congratulations on winning the $25 gift card from O'Reilly Auto Parts. Oh, and if you get a chance, go in there, and when you talk, almost every one of their facilities that I go in, they have some great parts professionals behind the counter that you can talk to, and they can help you find exactly what you're looking for. And we appreciate it very much. Okay, the number to call is 800-224-9090, and we believe we have the phone system back in order and doing what it should, but the number is 800-224-9090. Mentioned that we do have that tech tip quiz laid on the table. John and Mary have a teenage son that loves to text message. He was getting his license soon, and they were very concerned that he may have a distracted driving accident. They sit down and told him something that may have saved him from a terrible accident. If you know the answer, you give us a call, and we will be looking for you. Now, some of the other items that we're working on here has to do with maintenance on the vehicle. We're talking about text messaging or distracted driving, but we're also talking about maintenance on the vehicles. And one of the things that people asked about from time to time is why it's important to replace your brake fluid at certain times. And what happened is many years ago, replacing the brake fluid really wasn't a big deal because the cars usually it has to be replaced somewhere around 100,000 miles, and many years ago the cars didn't last but about 100,000 miles. So by the time you needed a brake fluid, the car had a lot of wear on it. Plus the cars didn't build up as much heat in the braking system, but partly they wasn't as powerful. And the second thing, they use these great big parts in the braking system. Now the cars are more powerful and the components are less, so you got a lot more heat. Heat can get things gunky and cause brake fluid to boil, moisture to boil in there. And the other final thing is it used to be the parts wasn't very expensive in most brake systems. And if you had to replace something like a caliper or a wheel cylinder or a master cylinder, it wasn't a great big deal. Now you've got more heat, you got more power on the car. You've got some very expensive components in the system too, like your anti-lock brake system. So when that system can be, it can be very expensive, and it is very prone to get little chunks of dirt in it. And so I recommend that at a certain time, especially if a test strip shows that it needs to be replaced, I recommend that you having the brake fluid replaced, and that'll save you from having a lot of issues later on down the line, like master cylinders, anti-lock brake assemblies, and a lot of other items. So consider having your brake fluid tested. There's a little test strip that a technician can stick in there if it changes colors. And of course, I love the BG system brake fluid exchange. It's a piece of equipment we hook to the car. It shoots new brake fluid in through the master cylinder under pressure, pushes all of the old brake fluid out of the vehicle, and just replaces it with new, and you get a good, long-lasting system. So that's a brake fluid exchange. Okay, we are going to take a real quick break, and when we return, we'll be going straight over to John. He's got a question about new cars. So we'll be right back just after this. And we are back with you with the C&C Auto Show. We're ready for your automotive question. Just dial 800-224-9090. That's on any Saturday morning, 8:05 to 10 Eastern Time. Again, 800-224-9090. We're going to go over to John. And John, welcome to the C&C Auto Show. What can we help you with?
Well, good morning, Aaron. I got a complaint, and then I got a question.
We're ready for both.
I've been looking, I've been looking for new cars, and I think they're really trying to rip us off because I've looked at all dealers now, and I've had two dealers tell me that extra sticker they put on the car, they call it a bump sticker, they call it, something else, some kind of profit thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's two of them told me now that they put that on there because they can't get cars to sell, so they want extra money.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's, terrible.
I'm going to have to agree with you.
So that's my complaint.
I'm going to have to agree with that one right there, John. That's kind of it seemed like they would find some better wording for that than a bump sticker or something.
Try to hide it a little bit more, come on. But anyway, as far as chips go, Aaron, all the car lots might have one or two new cars there.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all blaming China. Does China make chips for all the American car makers and the Korean car makers and Japanese car makers? And I mean, what's the story here? Do they all use the same chip? And why in the world can't the United States or Japan or Korea or somebody start making our own dang chips?
Well, John, I can give you my opinion on that. Now, I don't know if this is 100% accurate. It's just it's something that I thought about many, many years ago and been saying for many years. A lot of these items, let's say a computer chip, and a company designs this computer chip, and it's just awesome. I mean, it is absolutely fantastic, and they're building it, and it's selling very well. But then all of a sudden, they find that, hey, we can have this same chip made in China and ship it back and sell it for the same amount of money, but make a huge amount more profit on this part. And so they will go to China, they will shop to see, check on getting one built, and what they would charge to produce it. Now, then they get that lower price. Now, what I've said for many years, do they really think that that company in China, after they stop building it for them, or even though they're building it for them, that they're just going to throw away all the plans on how to do it and all the technology on how to do it. No, they would start making it for themselves, selling it and making the complete deal, and not even have the money wrapped up in the research and development that the company that built it in the U.S. did. I hate mentioning this because of me loving. I love electronics so much, but I'm gonna say that there's some concerns in that same department having to do with a lot of the batteries that are being built, the lithium battery, a lot of that metals and items that are going to go into these electric batteries, which really electric vehicles only make up about 2 or 3% of the vehicles now. As these metals that are needed to make those batteries, my fear is that the price is going to go up because of these metals. The price of these metals going up, like lithium, cobalt, nickel, manganese. All of these are going to be more expensive in time, and we could face something very similar to that with batteries. Now, I hope that don't happen. I hope we come up with some technology and is able to mine some of those items here in the U.S. And the same way with chips. I feel like we should be able to build those chips. But what happens is over the years, it's just they've been able to build them cheaper in China. So that's where most of them are coming from.
Yeah, well, I agree, but I think we should be able to build our own.
Well, I'm gonna agree with you. There's no doubt. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm getting ready to go on a fairly long trip again in my Durango.
Uh-huh.
And last time I was in there, which is just about a week or so ago,
mm-hmm.
Everything was good as far as, up to date on maintenance and service and everything. Would I be wasting my money to bring it in and get a pre-trip checkup on it?
Well, it wouldn't hurt to have just a quick, if it's not due for a regular service, oil change and lube, it does not hurt at all to bring it in for us just to look it over. I don't think I was go as far as spending, since you've got so many things in good shape, spending money on a complete pre-trip inspection, because you feel pretty good there. But it wouldn't hurt for one of the technicians to look under the hood, check the fluid levels, walk around, look at the tires, things that you've probably already done a little bit yourself, but just to give it that little added protection. So I don't think you need to pay for any kind of pre-purchase or pre-trip inspection, but I feel like just a quick check over would be good to do. Most of the vehicles, hey, that does give me a chance to mention one thing, John. When people carry their vehicle in to have a regular service done, a lot of times people just think, well, that's just an oil change, but it's much more than that. That's the time to do the things to check to see if transmission fluids due to be replaced and brake fluids due to be replaced, and how the tires look, if they need to be rotated, need to be lined. So that's the time to get all that taken care of, which you have done through the years. But that'll give me a chance to mention that to others, to have those vehicles inspected, and that's what adds to the longevity of the vehicle. Just quickly, roughly, how many miles do you have on your vehicle?
232.
Okay. And have you had any major issues, engines, transmissions, anything like that?
Not a thing. It's been running like a baby.
All right. That's that's exactly what I look at is people who take care of their cars. Items like that last a long, long time. Hey, John, great call. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Aaron.
Oh, thank you. Have a great weekend. Okay, number to call, 800-224-9090. If you have a question about your car, truck, or SUV, you give us a call, and we'll be right back after these messages. And we welcome you to the C&C Auto Show, and we are here to answer your automotive questions. And if you have a Question, give us a call, 800-224-9090. That's 800-224-9090. We are going to the calls, and I am going to go over to Tom. Tom, welcome to the C&C Auto Show.
Hello?
Yes, sir. Welcome to the C&C Auto Show. Is this Tom?
This is JC in Aiken.
Okay.
Hello?
Yes, sir. JC, are you calling the C&C Auto Show?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I'm
And
calling about my 2000.
Mhm.
Good morning, Aaron.
Good morning.
There must be a delay here.
Mhm.
Hey, I was calling about my 2012 Dodge or Ram pickup truck.
Mhm.
My number 6 cylinder's bad on the vehicle,
Mhm.
and the mechanic talked about replacing the engine. Is there anything I can do for that other than replace the engine on that?
Okay.
Is there something that can be done with it?
Now, how many miles is on the engine?
119,000.
Okay, that's fairly low miles of what I consider fairly low miles. Now, with the with this vehicle, did he mention what was out on that cylinder? What was making the cylinder faulty? Is it something to do with compression?
I think so because I replaced the coil packs, spark plugs. My son did, and then it's still done it. And then I brought it into him, and it's bent 2 push rods on it.
Okay. Now, did he replace the push rods and see if it would work after that?
Yes, he did.
Okay, and what it bent the push
Yeah.
rods again?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I have some thoughts on if there's a possibility that you may have a lifter that has stuck in the upward position on there. I tell you what, let me
Right. I
let
think he mentioned that. Yes.
okay. Let me get Joe on the line. What I wanted to be able to do is, as people call in, I want to try my best to get them in touch with some of the top technicians around. And I'm gonna get our producer in there to call Joe, see if he can get Joe DeLoach on the line with us, and if he can get him to tune in, because he's on the front line every day. And if I'm not mistaken, I was over that way not a real long time ago, and they had a lot of stuff off a Dodge engine, that same type truck, and I don't know exactly what they were doing, but my thought is that it could have been something to do something similar to that. We're working on getting him on the line
Okay.
now, and
Okay.
we're going to see how that goes. Now, you mentioned you had about 119,000 miles, and did this happen all of a sudden, or did it kind of gradually start getting like that?
All
Or
of a
misfiring?
sudden. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. All right. We're not going to be able to get Joe DeLoach on there. Okay. What I would recommend doing is, with 119,000, that's not a huge amount of miles. I would consider having lifters put in that vehicle and seeing if that solved the issue. Did it, when he put the new push rods in, did it immediately do the same thing over again and just bend them immediately?
No, it took a day or two.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I would strongly consider just going ahead and putting 2 lifters in the vehicle, and actually, depending on price, you may be able to consider all. I don't think the heads have to come off to replace that, but no doubt the intake manifold would need to come off of the vehicle, and then go in and put some new push rods in. I mean, put some new lifters in the vehicle, and there's a high probability that's going to take care of your problem.
Okay. Do y'all do that? I mean, as far as
Yes.
putting lifters in, and you know
Absolutely.
basically how much
Well,
ballpark?
you are when you get into lift for work, you do get into a fair amount. You could get into somewhere in the $1,200 to $1,500 range. Now that's kind of just throwing numbers out. That's not
Right.
anything exact by no means, but at least that'll give you kind of a ballpark idea of what you could get into. But that is a huge amount less than a whole engine.
Oh, you ain't kidding, because it's like 10 grand. I think you gave me a price about 8,500,
Mm-hmm.
but the warranty, I wasn't very happy about the warranty on it because
Mm-hmm.
it should have been more. But
Mm-hmm.
but that's what I was wondering, if there was an option to put lifters in it.
Yeah,
So,
it kind of depends on warranties. It kind of depends on where the engine comes from. A lot of times, that's not necessarily the shop itself. It has to do with what the
right,
engine or the company, what type warranty they give with it. So sometimes it's there's some
right,
remanufactured warranties, that remanufactured engine warranties that I see that can be 50 to 100,000 miles. And then there's also even new engine warranties that might be 12 months, 12,000 miles warranty. So it does vary. And that gives a great
right.
suggestion from to tell everyone that when they're doing things like checking prices of engines and different things, to be sure to ask what that warranty is, because it's important that you would know that.
Okay, would there be a warranty on the lifters if I got done in the shop?
Well, on the lifters themselves, but I will
Or,
tell you
or
that when you're doing work like that, there's so many things inside
uh-huh.
the engine till something like that, you really wouldn't have very much warranty, because if a new lifter
Right,
goes bad, something else would have had to cause it, or there's other problems down inside there. So it is some risk involved. And when you get a job like that done, just like even if you were talking to our service advisors, ask what risks are involved. They'd probably tell you anyway,
right.
because anytime you
Uh-huh.
working on something on the top of the engine, you know what you're doing there, but you're not
Right.
able to see all the stuff that's on the bottom that could act up at any time. But
Yeah, the internal stuff.
exactly,
Okay.
but that's the reason for a good technician to spend some time going over it before going in. Technicians and the shop wants every job to be as successful as possible, so they'll want to spend some time with the vehicle before actually going into it, so that they can be sure that it would be a good
Okay.
candidate for a lifter job.
Okay. Yeah, well, I sure do appreciate it.
Well,
And I'll
very.
probably get in touch with your shop or an Aiken. So,
That is perfect. Well, I really do appreciate your call, and have a great weekend. Thank you.
all right. Thank you.
Okay, the number to call, 800-224-9090. If you have a question about your car, truck, or SUV, you give us a call, and you don't run into a huge amount of lifter problems like the gentleman had, but from time to time, lifters do go bad, and they can cause a problem. And if I'm not mistaken, I've seen, I feel like some of the shops have had that very same problem before. Now, one of the things that I wanted to take just a minute and mention had to do with the transmission fluid on vehicles. A lot of times people forget about transmission fluid. The transmission fluid is kind of working. Everything's working right. Transmission shifting good. So you kind of put it out of your mind until you feel something unusual with the transmission, and sometimes that might be too late. Transmission fluid, it's not uncommon to see it last anywhere from 50, 60, on some cars even 100,000 miles, but it does lose its properties of being able to lubricate those fast-moving parts. And when it does, that could start causing wear, and of course then you get the wear particles inside the transmission fluid. And over time, that can work like sandpaper and cause a lot of wear inside the transmission and cause some major issues. So the trick is to catch that before it gets to that point. And you can do that by, in many cases, looking at the color of the transmission fluid. If it's kind of a clear color and it's still got the tint, usually a reddish tint on most transmission fluids. But if it's still got that, then high probability you're okay. Still not a bad idea to change it due to mileage in some cases. But if it's starting to discolor a little bit, and if you put it between your fingers, loses its viscosity, then it may be time to have that transmission fluid changed. So remember the transmission fluid. It can help you a huge amount. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back after these messages. And we do welcome you back to the C&C Auto Show. If you have a question about your car, truck, or SUV, you have us call that number, 800-224-9090. That's on any Saturday morning. And we will go over to, let's see here, we'll go to Mike. Mike, you mentioned you may be having some brake issues, and you've just replaced your pads and rotors. What's it doing to you?
Yeah, it's the weirdest thing. I went on YouTube, and it looked like a fairly simple task to change the rotors and the pads. Mm-hmm. So I thought, okay, I can do that. And so it runs fine. Driving it around the block after I did the job, everything seemed fine. It worked great. Just driving around town, it worked great. And then a few weeks later, I got out on the freeway, and I had to touch the brakes, and I had exceeded 60 miles an hour. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know why 60 would be a thing, but it seems like every time I try and brake over 60 miles an hour, I get really severe vibrations. Mm-hmm. And as soon as it goes below 59, and it's back to normal. Mm-hmm. And I've taken the wheel off, and I've looked, and I can't see any defect or any warping, or the pad's fine. Have you ever encountered anything like this before?
Well, I can tell you that what I found on most cars, now this is not every car because they're engineered different ways for different vehicles, but and many times if I'm trying to make a decision on if a vibration is coming from the front or the back, and I'm doing this without putting a dial indicator on it to check the warpage of the brake rotors and all that, most of the time I have found that if I'm coming up to a stop sign and I feel a heavy pulsation as I'm coming to a stop sign, then most of the time it's the front brakes that are doing that. But if I'm riding down the road and going 50, 60 miles an hour and hold very slight brake pressure on it and feel a heavy vibration coming from the vehicle, most of the time that's the rear. So now that don't explain, evidently this just started doing this after you did the front brakes?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. So, and I mentioned different designs, different cars. What type vehicle is this?
2013 Corolla.
Okay, 2013.
And it's funny, oh yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. This phone has a little bit of delay, so sometimes I jump in there. Okay, and what was that you were saying?
Okay. So the braking isn't coming to a stop. It's like, if I'm going 65 down I-20 and I'm pulling off on exit 199, and so I'm just slowing down to about, 50, 45, whatever, so I can get into the off-ramp. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the moment that it vibrates so badly. Like I said, once I get below 59, then it's fine again.
Yeah, now that's the case. I found it just like that is when I found many times it's the rear, but it's not. That's not on every vehicle. It kind of depends on which one, how they got the load set up on the vehicle, how much they're putting on the front, how much stopping power they put on the front as compared to the rear. If yours just started it after you put these brake rotors on there, my guess is you've got some bad rotors. Now, that used to be very common. We used to get a set of brake rotors and pads and put them on the vehicle, and it wasn't very uncommon that they would have this vibration. So years ago, we would actually even return brand new rotors so that they would be smooth before we put them on the car. Then as time went on, they started building rotors better and better. Some people said it had to do with the way they were stacking the rotors years ago, and now they do things to make them to where they don't stack them the same way so they don't tend to warp. Others say that it had to do with the way the rotors were built, and now they're when they're building them, they're much truer than they were before. But if you didn't have the problem before and you have it now, I would recommend going back to the place where you bought the brake rotors from and say, these rotors that I purchased are out of round and need to be replaced. Now, I always recommend also, now, of course, before you do it, make sure that all your caliper bolts are good and tight. And then if you do put the new rotors on there again, double check your caliper bolts, make sure all that's good. And but really, the things that you described with it not doing it beforehand, you had to have got a hold to some bad rotors.
Is it just bad to try and do something like this yourself? Do you save it for the experts, or, or
well,
what would you recommend?
Not necessarily because you're not good at you're not able to do it. But see, you're doing like that one brake job every couple of years, and so you don't know what items happen or not. For instance, we might find that if we buy rotors from one place, that we're more prone to have problems than if we buy rotors from another place. As a matter of fact, when we buy rotors, we don't buy, a long time ago, you used to buy a set of pads, and then if it needed rotors, because the old ones couldn't be turned, you would just buy the rotors separate. Now they come in a brake kit. We buy brake rotors in kits, and knowing one place you may purchase a set that you're more prone to get good ones than another, and it won't necessarily. It can vary from one time to the next. Just like at one time we used to return rotors after we bought them, and so now we know we don't have to do that because they fixed that issue. So I guess what I'm saying is more that technician would have the experience level. And of course, there are a lot of tricks to brakes, like you're supposed to put anti-seize compound on the slide pins to make sure that they don't stick at times. You're able to, but sometimes it has to do with just knowing where to purchase what parts. And if there are any other tricks along the way, sometimes in helping with squeaks, there's a washing procedure for rotors that most technicians do. So I would say it's a good idea, but if you're saving a lot of money, but I realize also sometimes people do things like that not to save money. Sometimes they do it because it's kind of like gardening. It's kind of like playing golf or something else. They do it. Sometimes people do it because they enjoy it. They want to do it and I'm good with that as long as they're safe. You want to make sure people use jack stands and don't put a jack stand in mushy areas to where it could go down. And that's the reason I love to tell people the safety along with the other. But it's just fine to do it yourself, but you may run into some issues just like you're running into now every now and then. But it sounds like you got a hold to some rotors that are not good.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you so much for your
and
time.
welcome.
Love your show.
I just have to say welcome to the mechanical world on that part because we go through it sometimes. I appreciate it.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the number to call is 800-224-9090. If you have a question about your car, truck, or SUV, you give us a call. And we have, let's see here. We have Bobby. Welcome to the C&C Auto Show, and what can we help you with?
Good morning. I appreciate your show.
Well, I appreciate you calling.
I've got a 2009 GMC Acadia, and recently it had if I found out it blew a fuse, it wouldn't start, wouldn't do anything, and I checked the fuses and found one blown, and it turned out to be the ECM fuse. Mm-hmm. I replaced it, and when I attempted to start it, it blew it again, so I put it in a local shop. And they said they had to put a new ECM, PCM, or BCM, or JCM, or something module,
something like that.
Thing. And that that did repair it, but since then it's been skipping. And a simple question, before I shall I say, confront them with this problem, would that, and it's a brand new module, not a rebuilt, would that module cause it to skip?
It is possible. Yeah, a module, it does control each cylinder. Now, years back, it would have been very difficult for a control module to kill just one cylinder because they used to be all grouped together, and if one fired, the other would. Now they fire individual, so it is possible for a driver and one to go out. We are out of time, and if you would give me a call back at the shop, will be fine, and I appreciate it very much. Okay, we're out of time, and we enjoyed being on the C&C Auto Show.